We welcome you to Wembley tonight, another glorious summer's evening, but alas, another paltry attendance. There's one...
Losing. England can't lose this evening. They must keep up their fantastic form.
Well, the teams, as you can see, coming out onto the field now. Another disappointing attendance. There's been a lot of talk in the press about whether these games should be played at grounds in the provinces, and I dare say one or two people might agree with that in view of the attendance this evening. And England playing in red as well, Ray, which I know you're not too keen on.
Now, that annoys me. It's, we're playing at home. The opponent should change. We've travelled all over the world and we always have to change when we go to opponents' stadiums. But it seems that we have this rule in where the English gentleman always changes at home.
Obviously an important match for Paul Parker this evening. I know a lot of people have been saying that Gary Stevens is by and large assured of his place at right back, but nevertheless an outstanding performance from him tonight. And he might start making Bobby Robson have second thoughts of it.
Paul Parker is a tremendous player, and I'm sure Gary Stevens is an admirer of Paul Parker as well. And I'm sure if Paul plays well this evening, it's going to put another bit of a question mark in Bobby Robson's mind. But that's only good from his point of view. He can only have the more problems that he comes up against at this stage. Sure, it's the better as far as I'm concerned.
You know Bobby Robson very well indeed. He's been outwardly very, very calm in recent weeks. Do you think he is, or is he inwardly, you know, very, very nervous, do you think?
No, I think he's got the utmost confidence in the chaps he's sending on the field, and I think that's a compliment to the players. He does seem very calm because he honestly feels that any side he plays, especially at Wembley now, that he's going to do very well. And there's no reason he shouldn't feel that way when they've gone 17 games without defeat.
You're actually out with it, England in Italy as well, aren't you?
I'm going out a couple of times, John, yeah. I'm basically stationed in London, but I will be travelling out a couple of times, yeah.
Presentation party about to come out onto the field of play, and the sides are going to be presented this evening to Mr. A.D. McMullen, who's the Vice Chairman of the Football Association. And starting down the Uruguayan sides, Francescoli. And I think you played against him in France, didn't you?
I did, unfortunately, yes. He's a fantastic player. John, he has marvellous technical ability. In actual fact, he just scored the goal that won Marseille the French Championship, which was a terrific goal. And I'm sure Chris Waddle's had a few things to say to Bobby Robson about his performance. He's a tremendous technical...
Paz de Leon with the ball, the full-back.
Paz, they've a guy in midfield called Ruben Paz, who plays with Genoa, who I fortunately saw last year in the American Championships against Brazil, Chile and Argentina, and he was absolutely magnificent.
Only one of their side plays in Uruguay, so they really are a cosmopolitan bunch, aren't they?
Yes, and I think it helps them. I think if there is an advantage from everybody playing outside of Uruguay, it's they learn other people's cultures and they learn to behave in a manner that they should do. And I think it helps them quite a bit.
Brian Robson doing the presentation bit again, what, the third time in fourth time in less than 2 weeks. How many times has Brian Robson done that in his career? Steve Hodge. Do you think Steve Hodge is assured of his place in the first match when we get to Italy in 3 weeks' time?
No, I think there's a lot of players, John, that aren't really assured of their places. I would say 5 or 6 definitely are, but there's still players that I would imagine Bobby Robson's looking at. For instance, Trevor Steven. Basically, all you have to do is change Chris Waddle from one wing to the other, and then you have Trevor Steven playing instead of Steve Hodge. It's basically going to be a preference of Bobby Robson, who he prefers on the day.
And being presented there to the officials, and Mr. Lobello from Italy is the referee, and I think you're not a great fan of his, are you?
Well, I've come up against Mr. Lobello on several occasions, and I must admit things haven't really turned out as I would like them to have turned out, but he's here, he's a FIFA referee, and I think he's working the line this evening. The referee's an excellent referee, Delia. He's a very good referee, so we shouldn't have too many problems there.
All right, Ray, we'll cause a break there for the anthems. their respective ends. Delighted to say the stadium is filling up a wee bit as well. Ray, just briefly, how do you see it going?
Well, I can honestly see us keeping hold of this fantastic run we've had, and I think we'll go 18 games today without defeat. Hopefully we'll go the 18th game with a win.
Okay, Ray Wilkins, thank you very much. And time now to join our commentary team of Andy Gray and Martin Tyler.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. Uruguay here for the first time since the opening game of the 1966 World Cup finals, and this is the England team that they face tonight. Peter Shilton named in goal for the 117th time. Paul Parker presents his case for a regular job at right back. Then come three Nottingham Forest players: Stuart Pearce, Steve Hodge, Bobby Robson's man of the match against Denmark, and Des Walker, who wasn't far behind him on that occasion. Terry Butcher at number 6, passing the captaincy back to Brian Robson, who passed the fitness test this morning on that bruised heel. Paul Gascoigne, more established now. Then Chris Waddle, after a disappointing 50th cap a week ago. Gary Lineker, who reaches the 50 mark tonight. And finally, John Barnes starting again as a striker. And Gary Lineker looking to extend an impressive sequence. He scored in all 5 of his internationals against South American opposition. Well, Uruguay make 2 changes from that side beaten by Northern Ireland. One of them in goal. It's the turn of 36-year-old Eduardo Pereira. Then Nelson Gutierrez, one of only 3 survivors from that unsavoury World Cup match against Scotland. Hugo de Leon, another tall, tough defender. Then Jose Herrera, the right back. Jose Perdomo, who plays for Genoa in Italy. Alfonso Dominguez, the only one of the 11 who is based in Uruguay. Antonio Alzamendi, another of the 86 World Cup squad. Santiago Ostolaza, who operates in midfield. Enzo Francescoli, Chris Waddle's teammate in Marseille. Ruben Paz of Genoa, promoted from substitute in Belfast on Friday. And then Ruben Sosa, who also earns his living in Italy with Lazio. And Sosa certainly the star of the show for Uruguay in the qualifying games. He scored 5 goals in the 4 World Cup group matches in such style that in Uruguay they call him the goal poet. The referee, Pietro Delia from Salerno in Italy, and all 3 officials are going to the World Cup. But as linesman, that's Carlo Longhi on the far side. And Rosario Lovello, if you saw our coverage of the Verona against Milan league game, Rosario Lovello was the centre of that match when the likes of Marco van Basten and Frank Rijkaard were sent off. Well, Andy Gray, it's another look at a side for Bobby Robson that's full of flair, but which had some dodgy moments defensively against Denmark.
That's certainly one of the things I'll be looking at tonight, Martin. Not something we've seen very often in Bobby Robson's reign, a very shaky England defence, especially here at Wembley. He'll be looking, and I'm looking to make sure that that is a bit more solid tonight, and I'm sure it will be.
Well, I'm sure the older viewers will remember that England did win the World Cup playing in red against West Germany here 24 years ago, a campaign that started with a disappointing goalless draw against Uruguay. Here's Gascoigne. Des Walker. And Terry Butcher with as many England players as possible along the back line, getting an early touch of the ball. And Uruguay perhaps want to do likewise here. And this is De Leon. Played forward by Herrera. Ostolaza on the far side, who's on the tall side for a midfield player. This is very much the basis of the team with which Uruguay will begin their World Cup campaign. In the group with Belgium, Spain and South Korea, a pretty well-balanced group too, based in Verona. Here's Pearce. All the England players a little relieved, I'm sure, that their names were on the list of 22 announced by Bobby Robson at the team headquarters yesterday. Parker, perhaps with most to play for. Oh, Barnes! It was an inviting ball played by Paul Parker.
And if there's one thing that people say Paul Parker has above Gary Stevens, is his distribution. And here we see this, for a striker, this is a perfect ball. Unfortunately, possibly came a bit too early for the strikers, but that's the kind of ball going across any ball, any defence's box that they absolutely hate. Tremendous start from young Paul Parker there at the back.
It's his fifth cap tonight. Pitts. So we're accustomed to the sense of adventure down the left side from Stuart Pearce, and Paul Parker trying to offer more of the same on the right. And the one thing Bobby Robson has been able to create has been the competition for places. It's a very important ingredient in the recipe for every successful team. This is Francescoli, and Ostolaza gives it straight to Robson, who was actually fouled by Alzamendi after the ball had gone. We will, of course, keep a weather eye on the Uruguayan tactics. They do believe that under their coach, Oscar Tabarez, they have improved their image. And their priorities are to play the game rather than stop others playing. We shall see. Ruben Sosa, tightly marked, and it's a real challenge on Paul Parker's side of the pitch to face an opponent of such calibre. Parker might have got a chance over the last couple of games, but of course he was suspended for being sent off, a rare blemish in his club career, and then he got a broken toe. Here's Ruben Paz with Alzamendi to the right. He looks the other way. Francescoli. Wobble. Taken from him by Dominguez. Some possibilities for Uruguay, but it ends with an offside.
I think what's pleasing in the first 5 minutes that Uruguay seem to be showing that they are going to be adventurous, they are going to push men forward, and England will enjoy that. They wouldn't have fancied tonight playing against a 10-man defence, just popping the attack against attack. They're glad that Uruguay are going to open up a little bit, and it certainly looks that way at the moment.
We talked of the 1-0 defeat in Belfast, but the team coached by Oscar Tabarez had an invigorating game against West Germany recently in Germany, a 3-3 draw. Could it be something similar here? Robson. Volleyed forward by Walker. Barnes in the central role. Perdomo is the holding player in midfield for Uruguay. And he is a tough customer too. Barnes. Pearce coming forward, picked out by Barnes. Lineker. Wasn't much reaction behind Lineker from what was a pretty astute flick. Here's Robson. Hodge, who always tucks in so neatly on the left. Pearce drives it in, and Dominguez got away with a header that was tentative. It is remarkable what Uruguay continue to achieve in football for such a small country. This game is very much the religion over there, and what has changed though is the capacity for players to go and earn their living overseas. Like Ruben Sosa. This is Ruben Paz. Herrera coming forward from right back. He's got Alzamendi outside him, and Herrera prepared to have a crack. He plays in Spain in the second division there. Barnes being asked to try and win it in the air. Here's Waddle. Chris Waddle admitted that the celebrations after Marseille had won the championship had come a little too early before the game against Denmark here. Certainly Waddle wasn't his normal sharp self. Alzamendi trying to get in behind Pearce, who was determined to prevent the cross. Francescoli waiting for some movement. It came from Ostolaza. Perdomo. Gascoigne trying to stop him releasing the pass. He couldn't quite do that. It needed Butcher's intervention. Robson. Gascoigne hodges away to the left and came off Alzamendi. Walker dealing with the long ball forward. Robson. That's nicely played by Ostolaza, and there's room here for Ruben Paz. Gascoigne was aware that Ruben Paz had got behind him, and he was scurrying there to try and get back. He didn't actually force the error, really. Beautifully done by Barnes. Robson. Now Gascoigne. Here's Parker. Waddle in close attendance. Well, it was a lovely piece of work, Andy, by John Barnes.
And I think what will help John Barnes and Gary Lineker tonight is that the Uruguayans aren't rigid man-for-man marking. They're giving them the space to come off and pick the ball up, and that'll suit people like John Barnes.
Robson. Oh, and if Lineker could have collected that, there were one or two options available for him to turn and strike at goal. Steve Hodge was free on the left for England. So we played 10 minutes at Wembley in England's last match in this country before the World Cup finals. Of course, they do have one further full international a week on Saturday in Tunisia, and you'll be able to see that here on the Sports Channel. Well, Uruguay hoping to get a free kick there with Ruben Sosa, who is very left-footed but isn't frightened of working the full width of the pitch. And England really will have to concentrate on keeping him under control for every one of the 90 minutes. Parker, just a flick through Waddle's hair, which is, as always, cut in an idiosyncratic way. That was handball, and it's a free kick to England. Eduardo Pereira, who always plays in tracksuit bottoms, whatever the weather. Waddle bends it in, but it's over Barnes. Nicely worked by Francescoli, with Ruben Sosa away on the right. Traditionally, Uruguay do play a short passing game, and the origins of that, believe it or not, come from Scotland.
Where are they now, one asks?
The famous Scottish coach at the turn of the century was a major figure in the development of the game in Uruguay, John Harley, and it is said that they've stuck to that style ever since.
And I think you can see that now, how, like most teams that actually come to Wembley now, the surface is so magnificent, they just stroke it about, and people like the South Americans especially will be absolutely feel like they're in heaven down there tonight.
Francescoli, and that's a little victory here for Gascoigne. Very popular with the crowd. He got the biggest cheer when the team lineups were announced. Barnes wasn't far behind in that respect. He was fouled, and with 13 minutes gone, it's a free kick to England. And Terry Butcher had started to go forward for an early ball played in. He's still upfield. He might start to think about going back now. Oh, look at that. They certainly are enjoying the surface. And signs here that this really will be a meaningful evening for England. Perdomo. Here's Herrera. Where England will want to work the ball is to get it to the feet of the likes of Barnes and Waddle, both involved in this attack. Gascoigne, off goes Pearce, was just made to check by the pass instead of being able to go forward into what space there was. They have to try and find inspiration now from Butcher. Pearce. So just the 8th meeting between these two countries, and Uruguay was slightly the better of it. The last game on a summer tour in '84, just after John Barnes had scored that magnificent goal for England against Brazil. Barnes did perform in Montevideo in that 2-0 defeat.
And the type of performance that England have been looking for, some would say, ever since, and I think John would love to give another performance like that just before he leaves.
I get the feeling, talking to him, Andy, that he really would like to go to the World Cup as a striker. And he's been given the chance, some would say a little bit late, after 50 caps. But if England can serve him right, he'll take some stopping in and around World Cup penalty areas. Broken up well by Parker, whose speed is so impressive, and his tenacity too. And England have, in recent years, been able to increase the pace throughout the side, certainly in the centre of defence with Des Walker now. Waddle, good idea, not quite executed properly. Oh, and Ruben Paz made that look so easy, to knee the ball beyond Steve Hodge. Oh, and that's a fine pass too, but there was the rapid recovery of Des Walker to stop Sosa getting in one-on-one with Shilton.
That's a big advantage in having someone like Des Walker there. I think possibly if it had been Terry Butcher, England might have been found wanting. But with the pace that this young man's got, this Forest player, it really is a boost for England to have him there.
Parker. Waddle has drawn 3 towards him. Butcher. Can Waddle get this? Well, he's made Dominguez lunge at the ball and knock it out for a corner. And Uruguay were beaten in Belfast by a goal from a corner for Northern Ireland, finished off by Kevin Wilson then. Not quite far enough from Waddle into the near post area. England have had quite a lot of success at set plays in the warm-up games. Waddle pumps it in, and that will give them a chance to show how well rehearsed they are at the corner routine again.
And I think set plays are an area that are going to create an awful lot of goals this World Cup, and that's why England in particular pay a lot of attention to them.
But Uruguay are a tall side. Waddle gets it in a second time. Gascoigne. In fact, there was an offside given there by the referee before the linesman actually put his flag up. And as I was saying at the start, for even Pietro Delia, who is in the middle tonight, the real purpose of the exercise for the officials is to learn about running the line. They're all fully qualified international referees, and they go off to a game in Yugoslavia after this one, where I think Rosario Lobello will be in the middle, and Pietro Delia will have his chance to see how good a linesman he is. Well, Stuart Pearce on Alzamendi. And referee Delia has seen plenty of that in the Italian First Division, and he lets Pearce go back to his position.
And I think this is one thing that probably bothers Bobby Robson about Stuart Pearce and worries him. I think it was a fairly good tackle myself. He actually did win the ball with his right foot, but unfortunately followed through with his left and just caught Alzamendi.
It's an interesting debate because up in Scotland, I think the Scotland management feel that they lack a little bit of devil in their team, and have cited Stuart Pearce as an example of the sort of devil that they would like. So you can look at it two ways. That's Ostolaza trying to score what would have been one of Wembley's great goals.
Don't think you could have heard of Peter Shilton's reputation trying to shot from there against the man.
Barnes. He got it through to Gascoigne, who was fouled by Gutierrez after the ball had gone, but the referee played a good advantage, and Hodge very nearly benefited particularly from that, coming in on the far side. And Gascoigne gets his own tackle in. Now, was that good play, or has he lost a bit of self-control? He was certainly fouled by Gutierrez. And that is part of the learning process in particular tonight, particularly for Gascoigne. But he seems in control at the moment. Francescoli. Blocked by Parker. Now Dominguez. Oh, and Ruben Sosa saw an opportunity here to take England on. Wasn't quite all he'd hoped for. Lineker came off Gutierrez quickly. So coming out to the halfway point in the first half, still England 0, Uruguay 0. Ruben Paz. This is De Leon joining in. An interchange with Ruben Sosa. But a wasted ball at the end of it, and Butcher will not want to be so wasteful for England. And that was nicely played. Waddle. Parker was holding initially, not wanting to run into Waddle's space. But England try and work it through the centre instead, and maybe now through Pearce on the left-hand side, with the help of Gascoigne. Now I think it's a throw. Alzamendi trying to get his own back on Pearce. Barnes, nicely fed by Gascoigne. This is Hodge, and England have a corner. And there is a great variety to England's football at the present. Barnes and Butcher busy at the near post. Butcher! Uruguay were fortunate to survive that. From Gascoigne's corner. Parker. Butcher is still there. Walker in the right place for England, then Perdomo for Uruguay. Lineker trying to harass a mistake out of Gutierrez. But a good corner, Andy, for England.
Yeah, and once again it proves that if the delivery is good, there isn't an awful lot you can do about it. Perhaps a bit more commitment from Stuart Pearce in there, and he might, had he believed that the ball was going to come to him, he could have been on the end of it. Perhaps a Brian Robson in that position might have done a little bit better. But Uruguay lucky to survive.
And Stuart Pearce, of course, who picked up a goal for England following a left-wing corner against Czechoslovakia. Barnes nicely waiting for Gascoigne to take on the burst. The foul was by Gutierrez. Gascoigne takes it in good part. The England manager will be pleased to see that. So too the referee. Well, here against Denmark, Stuart Pearce seemed to have seniority at the free kicks when a left foot was required.
Well, I think there's three of them there to choose from, isn't there?
Gascoigne approaching from a different angle, and John Barnes, of course. 5 in the wall for Uruguay, 2 for England. It's a blast from Pearce! Pereira met it with a save, really at full stretch. Well, he deserves the seniority. Here goes Barnes, though. And Pereira with a catch. And the Uruguay goalkeeper came through that well.
Well, Stuart Pearce all season has grown in confidence. And if you notice, he does work it very well with Steve Hodge, who ducks out the way right at the end of the wall, makes it very difficult. Watch Steve Hodge just get out the way here. Takes a player out the way, ducks underneath it. The keeper makes a very good save.
Offside against Alzamendi, and that really has been the clue for the direction of the shot, to look where Hodge is. And Bobby Robson using what has become a very potent weapon at set plays for Nottingham Forest. But here's Francescoli. Alzamendi, 4 forward for Uruguay. Ostolaza coming in with the header! A goal for Uruguay with 26 minutes gone to delight their supporters. And the counter-attack.
Yes, well, I did say from the very beginning it looked like they wanted to get forward. And what's happened is Ostolaza's come from deep, just crept in behind Terry Butcher, and Stuart Pearce is just a little bit late in coming round to cover him. And you see he gets a free header. It's actually actually a brilliant header for so far out, and he directs it brilliantly. Nothing that Peter Shilton can do about that, but it is showing how keen the Uruguayans are to go forward.
So England are behind, as they were here against Czechoslovakia. They recovered spectacularly from that, but you do sense that the opposition is of a slightly better standard tonight. And there was no doubt that Ostolaza just had a look to see where Shilton was and knew exactly what he was doing with the header. If he got enough elevation, he was sure it would drop into the net. Santiago Ostolaza, who plays in Mexico for the Cruz Azul club. Gascoigne. Well, we saw against Denmark the ability of a clever breaking team to make opportunities against England. What they didn't have, the Danes, was the right player in the right spot when they got in at Shilton. But Uruguay certainly were well served by Ostolaza. Good support, though, for England as they try to repair the damage from a crowd that I think is also appreciating that Uruguay here are offering high-caliber opposition and very relevant opposition given the proximity of the World Cup. Not that England will immediately meet South American opponents, of course, but one looks beyond the qualification with a record like that going into this game, as one should. 17 games unbeaten since the European Championship, and defensively very sound, although perhaps not tested as regularly as Bobby Robson would have liked. And he's got concern here with Alzamendi, and I know, Andy, you were looking at the matches in that unbeaten run, and there was a point you picked out.
Just before that, Martin, you see once again it's someone coming from deep. I think it's Ruben Sosa coming from deep when playing Aldo Mendes, and where England are having a problem at the moment is Uruguay are sometimes only leaving one man up front, and England are finding themselves with a back four marking him, and they're having great difficulty in picking up the men who are coming from deep, and Uruguay are varying it a great deal. But on the England's record, I think the thing that worried me, I mean, the home record's without question brilliant. The thing that worried me in that 17-match unbeaten run was the quality of opposition away from home, and not a great record away from home. And I would still be a little wary of this away record. I think if the World Cup finals were being played at Wembley, I'd be very, very confident. But I just have a little doubt about England's away performances.
Well, there might be an equaliser for Barnes, who saw the opportunity to try and steer it wide of a goalkeeper who was starting to move off his line, but it was maybe the difference again between the John Barnes of England and the John Barnes of Liverpool, where perhaps it's just a matter of confidence.
I wonder if the John Barnes of Liverpool would have thought of just thinking it over the keeper.
This is Herrera. Barnes. England have certainly had their moments in the opening half an hour, but they're a goal behind against the capable Uruguayan team. Parker trying to change that. It's a corner. Lineker hoping for the flick on from the likes of Barnes and Butcher. The alternatives for England are Pearce and Robson coming from around the penalty spot. Butcher, oh, can Barnes set up Steve Hodge here? Gascoigne. And Ruben Sosa, superb play with Alzamendi trying to return it to him. Ruben Sosa, who was honoured by FIFA, he actually played a part in the World Cup draw as one of the representatives from South America. Really a tribute to what he did in the qualifying games. He scored in every one of them for Uruguay at a time when others were not supplying goals for his country. Lineker. There's a little nudge by Alzamendi on Parker then. Almost spun Parker through the air. But so far, there's not been too much of the cynicism and the violence from Uruguay. Oh, there was some eccentric goalkeeping then from Pereira. He does look something of an eccentric character.
It looks like his hair might have got in his eyes there, Mark, right at the last minute.
Here's De Leon. And Francescoli, by coming deep, finding himself able to collect the ball, and Shilton and Butcher almost getting too close to each other then, with Ruben Sosa hoping to punish any mistake. Robson. Lineker made a run to the right, but England playing through Gascoigne at the moment. And Robson. Away by De Leon. Gascoigne. Pearce again. Alzamendi having to defend and not really suited to that job. And it was more the ill-timed tackle of a forward, really, than anything particularly nasty. Now, might this just be too far out for Gascoigne? It's a little clip in to try and find Butcher, but the Uruguayan had got their marking pretty well worked out. And Pearce wasn't called upon that time.
But if we wondered if we were going to get a genuine test for England tonight, I think we can see there's definitely one on. Bobby Robson, like Ray Wilkins beforehand, I think he's quite right to take a game like this. At the end of the day, the result won't be important, whether England get back in the game or not. What will be important is the learning process for a lot of these players who have never come across South American teams before.
And indeed, from the Uruguay perspective, they rarely play against European teams. But it's a fairly solemn Bobby Robson at the moment. Brian Robson trying to lift England, as he's done so often in the past, of course. Barnes. Nowhere to go, really. Here's Parker. Lineker trying to get across the face of Hugo De Leon then, and he very nearly accomplished it. It's the mobility of Uruguay that's causing England problems. Players like Francescoli dropping into midfield. Barnes and one. And still one. And it's a corner. England have had a succession of those. And this could represent a route to an equaliser. Waddle just waiting for Butcher, who's there at the near post now. Barnes seemed to get there first, but the back header was covered by Herrera. Alzamendi and Walker couldn't let Alzamendi get the ball beyond him then. He's very quick, don't be fooled by the grey hair. Ruben Sosa, Francescoli. Here's Gutierrez. Paz. Ostolaza the scorer. Well cut out by Terry Butcher. And Lineker was bundled in the back by Gutierrez. 7 minutes to go to half-time. Barnes, Lineker just slipped, and De Leon, who's as tall and straight-backed as a guardsman, was able to get to the ball first, putting the guard on Lineker at the moment. It's the old contrast, Andy, the rigidity of an English system, a British system, basically England playing 4-4-2, and a lot of fluidity from the opposition.
Very much so. I think especially going forward, the Uruguayans have been very, very impressive. People have said that there's maybe a doubt about the pace and mobility at the back, but the lads in midfield and the front too certainly make up for that and have caused England a tremendous amount of problems, basically in who they're actually picking up.
Alzamendi, who's worked the full width of the pitch as well. And at the moment, you'll find Ruben Sosa on the right, as Alzamendi did with the pass. Well, it was a tackle by England to try to prevent a shot coming in from Ostolaza. No, it's Ostolaza dealing with Barnes on the far side. It was Ostolaza's okay. The player who is rather gingerly making his way back was Herrera, who'd had the shot at the other end and was just caught in the act of shooting, and there was concern from the Uruguayan players, as indeed there would be if anyone gets hurt in a match like this with the World Cup so close. Herrera, having checked the damage himself and not required treatment, is okay to take the throw. In fact, Ostolaza had filled in for him at right back. And here's Paz. Gascoigne getting his tackles in, which is part of his job. The feeling in the England camp is that the moment he has edged ahead of Neil Webb for a place in the first game against the Republic of Ireland.
But I do feel Neil Webb's performance, particularly in the FA Cup replay final, certainly would have given Bobby Robson food for thought. Looked to be back, almost back to his very best.
Here's Sosa. Long from Pearce. Lineker and Barnes stopped by the foul by Herrera. And Bobby Robson, who's come down and having really his first discussion of the evening with Don Howe since the match started, prior to the half-time talk, which is about 3 minutes away. Uruguay now not retreating quickly at the free kick. Four in the middle for England. Gascoigne takes it. Robson couldn't really get a sight of the ball. Maybe now from Parker. Well, it's Lineker. And Barnes coming in. As he pushed that. Certainly the crowd felt so. The England protests have died away. Waddle. Oh, that's cleverly done by Waddle, and Pereira was worried about the bounce. There was no one following in. But was this a penalty?
Well, I think they've got a case. I don't think the Uruguayan defender, all he does, he's making sure John Barnes doesn't get a header. You would say, actually, that's great defending if you're a Uruguayan, but I certainly think John Barnes will feel he has a case there. Made no attempt to play the ball, just made sure Barnes didn't get it.
Well, that's the match figures so far. And just the one shot on target from Uruguay. It's enough, it seems, to take them to half-time, a goal up. They're a minute and a half away from that. Butcher. De Leon and Lineker. Well, I think that time Hugo De Leon was just standing his ground, really. He was quite entitled to head the ball, and Lineker ran into him and bounced off. But it has given England a free kick in a very promising position. Francescoli was pleading the case then for De Leon.
I think he's just making the point you made to the referee there, Martin.
And Uruguay will not be pleased if Bobby Robson's team equalise from this. The England manager, on the other hand, who's probably got one or two stern words to say when he gets to the dressing room, watches with particular interest. It's Gascoigne. Well, he's done it for Tottenham. The expression said it all, really.
Yes, he's disappointed he hasn't hit the target. I think with so many options, so much quality around the free kicks with Pearce, Barnes and Gascoigne, to waste one like that, that's why he's disappointed.
And he knows he can put them in too. So he's entitled to be disappointed. Overall, England won't be pleased to go in at half-time a goal down. It has been a very interesting first half, happily with none of the violence that is often associated with Uruguayan football. They certainly scored a high-quality goal from Santiago Ostolaza after 27 minutes, and just before that, England had had perhaps their best moment when Stuart Pearce had thumped a free kick past the Uruguayan wall, and Pereira had done very well to keep it out. Well, there's plenty to look forward to in the second half. We'll have a half-time assessment from Ray Wilkins after this short break. Their rhythm right and hopefully get a goal back for England against a most capable and confident Uruguayan side who've never won at Wembley. Here in '66, as we've said, and in '64 when they were beaten 2-1, 2 goals for England by Budgie Byrne. Pearce waiting for some movement from Barnes and Hodge. Gutierrez got there first for Uruguay. It has been a game played in very good spirits.
Yes, I mean, I think both teams are using it as a bit of a test. It hasn't been the physical game that I think you would expect if there was something on for this game. If this game really meant something, I'm sure it would be far more physical. And I think we've seen from the stats with the fouls in the first half, there hasn't been a great deal of fouls in the game, but it's good to see that.
It's a case of working on patterns of play, and England look to do that through Gascoigne. Now Waddle with Dominguez right beside him. Chris Waddle still challenging those who are trying to prevent his progress and earning England a corner by his willingness to take them on. Well, that would have been an own goal. England haven't varied the corners very much.
No, I think when you're so good at them, when you get people that can deliver them as well as Chris Waddle, then you continue. It's actually John Barnes gets a little touch on it. But up till now, this is England's best chance of an equaliser, a dead ball situation.
There's a corner to be taken this time by Gascoigne. And certainly the Wembley crowd trying to get behind England and give them the right sort of send-off to the World Cup finals. Barnes and Butcher repositioning this time. Butcher got to it. Uruguay streaming out. Gascoigne again. Everything ahead of Walker, except Paul Parker, who was square of him. And Uruguay have really forced England back collectively then. Gutierrez very determined in the centre of their defence, winning that header, while Barnes was just a little static. It's a matter of the England midfield learning how best John Barnes wants to receive the ball. They've worked that out as far as Lineker is concerned. Without being pessimistic, just for the record, England's last defeat at Wembley was back in 1984 against the Soviet Union here. Barnes. Lineker tries to bend it, but Pereira saw it coming. Well, he's been too slippery for South American defenders in the past.
But it shows you at 1-0, you've always got a chance when you've got someone like Gary Lineker up front for you. Here it's good position with the goalkeeper. Actually makes the save look very easy, but he knew exactly where Gary Lineker had to put it if he wanted to score.
A header from Hodge and then on from Barnes. Lineker. England getting good support from midfield from Robson. Oh, and he might go all the way here, Brian Robson. And I don't think there was a case for a penalty then. It was just the sort of impetus that England are looking for from the captain. But he took them all on.
And it's the kind of run that you need to pick up a team, to pick up a crowd. He does brilliantly. I think you're quite right. I didn't feel there was a penalty there. No, I think that the defender, Herrera, just gets his foot to the ball there and just manages to steer it away. And Brian's momentum just takes him over.
And here's Ruben Sosa for Uruguay. He's coming up for 50 internationals since England last had a penalty back in 1986. It was taken that day by Brian Robson in Israel. In 8 years that Bobby Robson's been in charge, England have had only 4 penalties. But you just feel they might get one tonight if they can attack the tall Uruguayan backline with the ball at their feet. And in the past, Gary Lineker has been deputed to be England's penalty man. And he hasn't yet taken one for his country. Gascoigne. It's Ostolaza, who's a pretty all-purpose midfield man.
It's funny you mentioned penalties. I was actually talking to Gary on the pitch before the game, and that was a subject that came up, and he said, yes, I've been on penalties for so long we haven't had one, so he is still on them.
Pearce had to drive it in early. Our Barnes!
Into the second half.
This is pure genius. This is John Barnes at his very best. Stuart Pearce just hoists one. Barnes doesn't go for the challenge. Sees the defender missing it. It's good enough to keep his balance and strike it into the top corner. Keeper makes a great effort, but the shot perfectly placed.
Well, it was the tall De Leon who committed himself to go for the header, but he misjudged, and John Barnes finding his feet as an England striker as opposed to a wide player, and that might just have made up Bobby Robson's mind as to where to play Barnes when they get to Italy. 1-1, and John Barnes gets his 10th England goal. Here's Hodge. A real tonic at the start of the second half, not just the goal but the way it came. Oh, and Parker was concerned as to what action the referee would take for the foul on Francescoli. It gives us another opportunity to admire the very best of John Barnes.
It's a joy to see this lad when he does things like that. And I think you're quite right. If Bobby Robson had a doubt where to play him in the World Cup finals, a piece of skill like that must surely have made his mind up.
And when he's wide on the left, as he has been for the vast majority of his international career, well, he has to take a chance to take up a position like that. I'm sure it's not denied him, but he wouldn't want to go wandering too often, particularly when he has defensive responsibilities as well. Robson, who perhaps set the tempo for the second half for England with that surge just before the goal. Barnes. It won't reach Hodge. Herrera saw to that. Pearce. England getting the 50-50 balls now. Waddle. Paul Parker coming in.
It's very much like the Danish game in many ways, where the Danes had the better of the first half and looked like they were dominated. Suddenly England have come out at half-time, and as the Danish, first 20 minutes against the Danes in the second half, they were tremendous. As you say, I think Brian Robson's the one that set the tempo with that great run, that forceful run. Players have picked up from them, and they really do look a yard quicker, this half, the England players. It's quite amazing at times.
Poor kick by Pereira. Waddle helps it on. It's Lineker and Gutierrez. Robson right up there again. But Hodge and Gascoigne were covering in behind him, and Gascoigne went hunting the ball as well. And England applying the pressure now. Maybe the message was, well, you've let them settle and play, and you've allowed them to look good. Well, they don't look so good now.
Any team, and especially a team with the skill of the Uruguayans, as Ray Wilkins says, technically they're as good probably as, if not better than a lot of the England players. And if you allow people like that time and space on the ball, then they will play and they will hurt you. England, Bobby Robson quite rightly decided, don't allow them that time, don't allow them that space, let's go and hurt them ourselves.
And don't let Uruguay upset our plans. Hodge, first in again. This is Dominguez. Butcher. Lineker was aware that the back pass might be on then. Oh, and Herrera with a mistake that Hodge nearly seized on. And here comes Pearce. It's a rampant England at the moment. Robson, Barnes. Gutierrez got to it. Barnes trying to knock it back in again, but Perdomo was the master of him in the air. And here's Ruben Sosa. That's a test for Des Walker, and he's come through it well. Had a good time for him in the game. With England's confidence high, that's a trip by Perdomo, who has been involved in some of the shameful scenes for Uruguay in the past. He was sent off 3 years ago in the final of the South American Cup, and he was actually captain. Uruguay won it, and having been sent off, he then went up to get the trophy. Robson, oh, there's an offside there against Lineker, but it was a solid challenge by Robson that jarred him for the moment, maybe on that bruised heel. That's always the expression when Brian Robson is injured on the manager's face. We've seen enough of it over the past 8 years. Herrera. Parker on Sosa this time and fouling him. They're well matched in size and speed, but not really in experience. Ruben Sosa's had 2 years at the top.
I think Sosa may have the edge on experience, but I think desire plays a big part tonight, and I'm sure that Paul Parker's desire to do well is a little bit greater than Sosa's, probably.
Well, he might prove you wrong at this free kick, Andy. Ruben Sosa. It was deflected! That's why the save was a difficult one. Ruben Sosa was just a little too young for the '86 World Cup. Had to reposition very sharply there, did Chilton. Here's Francescoli. Perdomo, and now De Leon. And they've got the ball to Sosa again. Oh. I first saw him play at Wrexham in the European Cup Winners' Cup when Wrexham qualified. He was playing for Zaragoza of Spain then, and he was simply outstanding. Since then he's moved on to Italy. It's a difficult one for Dominguez here. Waddle. Now Parker's positive work earning England another free kick. And Perdomo rather wearily picking himself out of that. We've had an hour, 1-1, and England looking to improve on that. Barnes, oh, Lineker! It's flagging, and it wouldn't have been a goal in any case.
Well, suddenly John Barnes is filled with full of confidence. Amazing what a goal does for a player. Controls the ball in that tight situation, but also delivers a perfect cross. Gary Lineker just caught a shade offside.
Well, the flag was up straight away. But when you see John Barnes when he's with England, he looks at you as though you're going to ask him why he doesn't do so well for England as he does for Liverpool. And he does need that injection of confidence that a goal like tonight brings. It might seem strange when a player like this has done so much at club level. Waddle. Parker. Uruguay trying to put together the sort of break that brought them their goal. Perdomo. Oh, and Ruben Sosa changed the direction then. Back to Alzamendi when England thought that it was going to go on to Francescoli. And Ruben Sosa, without ever getting free, is exhibiting some very classy touches. He's the number 11. He took that last free kick. But Perdomo and Francescoli also fancy themselves at the set plays as well.
Oh, and Shelton is beaten by the power from Perdomo. What an astonishing free kick for Uruguay.
Well, I must admit I'm surprised at this. When he hit it, I thought Peter Shilton had it covered. Gets two hands to it, but he just doesn't get enough. I really am surprised that Peter's been beaten from this far out. It's a brilliantly struck free kick, but Peter sees it all the way, just doesn't get enough hand on it. I think knowing that man there, he'll be really, really disappointed that he hasn't stopped it going in.
So Perdomo powers Uruguay into a 2-1 lead. The Italian-based midfield player who operates in Genoa and didn't score a goal in the Italian league all season, but he's got one at Wembley, and England have to start again after all their good work since half-time. And it reinforces your belief of the importance of set pieces come the World Cup.
Yes, I think we've seen a prime example of it there. They will play a massive part, and the team that's best at them will have an advantage in Italy.
Well, do you think that Peter Shilton had his eye on Ruben Sosa coming with the left foot and perhaps was just taken aback by the fact that Perdomo came from this side?
Yeah, he may have, but when you look how far out we are there, I mean, Peter Shilton, we regard him as world-class, we regard him as possibly the best in the world. I think he'll be desperately disappointed that he's let that one go through his hands, I must admit, being honest. I mean, if I was to ask you, do you think Peter Shilton will be beaten from about 35 yards from a free kick he sees all the way? I don't expect you to say yes.
No, that's right, and he's reflecting now. Here's one. It's taken some of the bubble out of England on the field for the moment. The supporters a little stunned as well. Accustomed to a sequence of England wins here. Just flicked off Barnes, so it's the linesman Carlo Longhi. Still 25 minutes for them to watch, for you to watch at home. And Perdomo full of smiles. And why not, after what he's just done for Uruguay?
And I think it's a 25 minutes where Bobby Robson, I'm sure, will be hoping his team just keep playing to the pattern he set for them before the game, not throw men forward willy-nilly and take a chance and get the result. It's more important in Italy than the actual result in this game, so he'll be looking for a good solid performance from now on in, and hopefully sneak in the equaliser.
Uruguay have already based their camp in Italy, and they've left a couple of injured players there as they move around Europe, picking up some competition. And a mixed bag of results. Would be an unusual double to lose to Northern Ireland and yet to win at Wembley. That is certainly on for Oscar Washington Tabarez. Walker. Here's Herrera. Pearce really relished that. There's a glint in his eye when he sees a 50-50 ball.
And I think, looking at Herrera's reaction, he obviously have heard about Stuart Pearce.
Butcher. De Leon happy to clear and particularly relieved that Uruguay had got the lead back. It was really his mistake that allowed Barnes to have the shot, although what Barnes did once the ball had reached him, of course, was exemplary. Came off Alzamendi, Ostolaza. Space now for Paz. Ruben Sosa repositioning ahead of him, and Alzamendi trying to join in on the right. Pearce. Barnes. Oh, that's again done in a way that could be such a major influence on the World Cup. He could be one of the great entertainers for a worldwide show. And of course a match winner. At the moment his priority is to try and help England to equalise a second time. Deep from Gascoigne, the goalkeeper didn't look very convincing. And Parker again, in his anxiety to win the ball in the Uruguayan half, has committed another foul. Gives us an opportunity, Andy, to look at John Barnes again.
Yes, it's quite exceptional what this young lad is capable of. His ball control and ability to beat players in tight situations is absolutely magnificent, and it's a type of skill that's, instead of being useful out here in the wing as we see it now, is where I think Bobby Robson will get more uses in the middle. To be able to do that in a tight situation, in and around the edge of the 18-yard box rather than out in the wing, is somewhere where I think Bobby Robson has got to use him.
It was Ostolaza who felt the force of Parker's foul. Bobby Robson has been quick to play down any sort of trumpeting of England's cause because of a good crop of results. He had all that in 1988, of course, and then followed the flop in the European Championships. So this particular cloud might have a silver lining. But the Uruguayans undoubtedly are enjoying playing at Wembley. The tight skill and the control, and Ruben Sosa very much to the fore. He'll take some containing in the World Cup.
It's quite amazing at times. We purr about the skills of John Barnes in this country, and we look at the Uruguayans, they look to have 3 or 4 capable of that type of ability.
Chris Waddle was saying about Francescoli before the game that he's better when he's instinctive. If he has too much time to play, he does make mistakes, and sometimes you can really give him the ball and let him play into your hands, but if he just turns and reacts, he can be devastating. And at the moment England are finding it hard to get away from the edge of their own penalty area. And that's Ostolaza, and that would have been on target too. It was a pretty heroic block by Terry Butcher. He didn't flinch. And it was just a little stab volley there by Ostolaza, who at times looks awkward, but the technique was very tight then. Butcher who got in the way of it. Pearce. Gutierrez and company found it difficult at the start of the second half, but they found extra resolve now since Perdomo's free kick. Rush past Shilton. Butcher and Walker went for the same ball. Here's Ruben Paz. Off goes Ruben Sosa. Oh. And again. It almost takes your breath away. You're surprised when he plays it the way he's facing. There's been a succession of bewildering back heels. Gascoigne. Now what? England, of course, have got plenty of flair of their own. That's on for Gascoigne here. Waddle. Uruguay have got plenty back. Well, it was a disappointing cross, given that Waddle had cleverly made room for it. Out by Gutierrez. Prodded on for England by Pearce. Gascoigne. Well, it isn't the sort of match that you would expect if these two countries do meet in the World Cup, but that shouldn't detract from the enjoyment of it, or indeed from the exercise that Bobby Robson's players are going through. And the manager recording his thoughts on that piece of paper then. Gascoigne.
I think one of the lessons that they will have learned, and it's one that Ray Wilkins mentioned right at the beginning of the game, is that you cannot afford to give the ball away easily. We must try and keep hold of it as much as possible, because it is very difficult to get it back.
And Gascoigne trying to get it back then from Dominguez. Well, Ray Wilkins watching in our studio. England always try to keep possession when you and Brian Robson were together in midfield. Are we giving it away a bit too much?
I think we have started to, Martin. Yeah, since their second goal, it appears that we've got slightly desperate. And there's no need, really. We still have 20 or so minutes to go. And I honestly feel if we keep... Here's Terry now. Terry's actually taken 5 touches of the ball. Although he's played a very good pass there, he needs to play the ball earlier and give people in midfield more time on the ball.
That's something to keep an eye on then, as England try to repair the damage a second time, and there was a hint of desperation really about that little episode involving Chris Waddle as well. Gascoigne. And Waddle setting off on a sprint then. In fact, that became more of a hurdle race. And he fell at the first, and he's got his reward in the shape of a free kick. With 15 minutes to go, England trailing to Uruguay by 2-1. The elevation from Waddle either. Gascoigne, Robson. Hodge slipped, but Butcher is there, and it is a corner. Hit with more pace this time by Gascoigne. The Uruguayans haven't dealt with it. Parker scampered across. Gascoigne probes. Alzamendi appeals. Steve Bull and Peter Beardsley. As Bobby Robson tries to solve the short-term problem and prevent a defeat here, which I wouldn't think would weaken morale too much, but still, obviously, England would want to avoid if they possibly can. The spirit in the England camp is exceptionally good. Here's Lineker. It's another corner. Lineker is going off. And Hodge as well. Peter Beardsley in particular is very short of match practice. Ball's been involved, of course, for England recently, but Beardsley hasn't played a senior game since the FA Cup semi-final for Liverpool against Crystal Palace at the start of last month. Missed the last 8 league games for Liverpool. I think Butcher was backing in. Now, a few months ago, Peter Beardsley would have been assured of a place in England's starting lineup. It isn't quite like that now. But you might remember he didn't start in '86, when, of course, he was a far less seasoned campaigner. But he certainly made his mark when he got into the side. Bull. Waddle. I'm sure Steve Bull is in the squad for just this occasion, should it happen in Italy. When England are a goal down, he's the man they'll send for.
Well, certainly in Italy, if you ever wanted a man to come on and unsettle a defence that's maybe had it a bit easy throughout the game, then you can't throw on a better man than Steve Bull.
Gascoigne. There wasn't much room there. He's found space. This is a wonderful run by Paul Gascoigne. Barnes. Pearce lines it up. And Gascoigne took them all on then. But there were just enough players back for Uruguay after they'd been drawn across to the far side to deal with Gascoigne's cross before it reached Bull. Here's Walker. England's spirits have been fired, and in a way Gascoigne showed exactly the sort of response that Ray Wilkins was calling for. Robson, he's overhit it.
This is what I'd like to see Paul Gascoigne do a lot more of. It's probably the first flash of genius that we've really seen in where it matters, in the last third of the pitch. Tremendous a bit of ball control, beating 1, 2 and 3 players. But not only that, is when he gets at the end of it, he's still got enough about him to produce a tremendous cross. And Herrera at the back post does very, very well for Uruguay, and just gets a little touch on it here, just to take it away from Steve Bull.
We tend to forget his strength. Francescoli. 10 minutes to go. Alzamendi. This is Sergio Martinez, who's only 21, and it's certainly one for the future for Uruguay. He's the son of a former full international, Carlos Martinez. Bull. Well, he's penalised that time, but I wouldn't think the Uruguayan defenders have seen too many players like Steve Bull before either. Ruben Sosa is going off, I can almost say sadly, because I've enjoyed seeing what he's had to offer so much.
He has really showed us a variation of some tremendous skills, but I think, like Gary Lineker, I think that Tavares, the Uruguayan manager, knows exactly what Sosa's capable of and wants a little look at someone else.
And this is the player who has replaced him, Sergio Martinez, who will be looking for his move to Europe, I'm sure. He's still Uruguayan based at the moment. Barnes, who's back on the left, of course, now with the ball through the middle with Beardsley. Here is Bull. Barnes. And Uruguay certainly aware of where the greatest danger might come from. They surrounded John Barnes then.
They'll also be very pleased to see him move to the wide left. He almost looks a bit sad about it himself, does John Barnes, being moved there.
Eight minutes left. De Leon covered well after Uruguay got themselves in something of a tangle. But you always sense that England might just get the corner kick routine right, and now would be just the time to do it. They've had plenty of practice in this match alone, and Terry Butcher won't want to give away a free kick like he did the last time England had a corner. Here's Chris Waddle. Oh, Pierce! Well, it was a very good chance.
It was a good chance, but you must give the goalkeeper credit here. It is a great ball in from Chris Waddle. Doesn't panic here when he maybe could have shot first time, but he looks up and plays a great little ball into the far post, where Stuart Pearce can only just barely get a leg to it. But what a great instinctive save from Pereira. Brilliant save from the goalkeeper, who denies England the equaliser.
Yes, I think Pearce, having got to the ball, which took some doing, would have felt from that range the odds were on him to get it either side of the goalkeeper, and he couldn't have stopped it then. But having blocked it, he caught it. Eduardo Pereira, a goalkeeper who's had his share of controversy in his own country. He left to play outside of Uruguay, apparently for political reasons. And he still plays his club football in Argentina. And he didn't play for the international team till he was 33. Well, he hasn't had a bad night here at Wembley. England just have 5 minutes left to extricate themselves from a defeat here at Wembley. Barnes. In from Barnes. Under Bobby Robson, West Germany have won here. Denmark on that European Championship qualifier in '83, and the Soviet Union, the last team to do that, in '84. Are Uruguay going to be added to that list? Gascoigne certainly fired up to prevent that if he can. Francescoli weaving a spell on the England defenders. Beardsley. Hardly time to adjust for Peter Beardsley and Steve Bull. Pearce. Ostolazo was just helping it forward, and Butcher had to hook it into space behind his fellow defenders where it was safe. And it has been a night for handshakes, and a game in which both countries have been able to approach the match properly. Ostolazo in the way again. He uses his height like that in midfield, and Bull puts the ball away with typical aplomb, but the whistle had gone.
I think he'd have stuck it away anyway, to be honest with you, man.
Well, the crowd are whistling, but the official whistle had certainly been heard by all the Uruguayan players. Bull didn't want to hear it.
Now, can England do what Uruguay did?
It's a little nearer. Gascoigne, remember, was livid with himself for not hitting the target from a similar position in the first half. Barnes could go for the other side. He does!
Yes, again, I think you've got to hit the target from free kicks. I mean, at least make the goalkeeper make a save. And John Barnes, again, with his ability at dead ball pieces, I'll be disappointed he hasn't at least made the goalkeeper save it.
Yes, and that point is borne out by our match statistics. Look at England, 12 corners to none from Uruguay. England with the greater number of shots on target, but it was a free kick that tilted the match back Uruguay's way and may well have won it for them, despite this late England pressure. 90 seconds to go. Pearce. In goes Bull, and his run was blocked off professionally by De Leon, making sure that the goalkeeper had full protection.
It's certainly not a performance to be disappointed about, and I don't think Bobby Robson will be too disappointed if the score stays like this. He wanted his players to learn, and a lot of them, we must remember, haven't sampled South American football, and this will be a great test for them, and it'll be a good learning ground for them tonight.
And the paying customers at Wembley have had value for money. This is Martinez, the substitute, and Uruguay do have a corner. It's taken them 89 minutes, but in that time they've also got 2 goals.
And I bet they don't just knock it into the box, giving the ball away. If I'm not surprised, they'll just knock a shot one and keep it over there.
Well, they might prove you wrong.
Surprise.
Andy, this is the new Uruguay trying to win friends and influence people. They're certainly going to delay taking it. You were right all along. And here is Robson, and England have got a long way to go upfield in injury time. Pearce. Barnes. The unbeaten run is very nearly over. Waddle. Robson right in there fighting. And Martinez and Alzamendi keeping the ball until they knock it way away from their own goal. Perdomo. Well, England set off on their World Cup adventure on a disappointing note. Certainly in terms of the result, beaten here by 2-1. The winner from Perdomo's free kick that stunned Peter Shilton after John Barnes had got a stunning goal of his own to bring England back to 1-1 at a time when it really looked as though they would go on and win it, even though they had trailed at half-time. Bobby Robson's team has its first defeat in 18 internationals, and their first here at Wembley for 6 years. Uruguay certainly improving their image internationally with their better behaviour, and tonight with their ability to contain an England side which possibly was more concerned about getting through the game unscathed rather than undefeated. As an exercise against the South American style, it was certainly educational for England. We'll take a short break and be back at Wembley in just a couple of minutes.